run-first team. We know that's where their strengths lie, especially when you look at Mo Ibrahim, who we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. But, guys, no matter who plays quarterback, whether it's Tanner Morgan, whether it's Ethan Kaliakmanis, whether it's Cole Kramer, the numbers have just got to be better because in the last 3 games, if you look at the combined statistical numbers, 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions in the last 3 games. That's not going to get it done no matter who's playing quarterback.
Yeah, and some of those interceptions go on the receivers. Like PJ brought that up a couple weeks ago on the PJ Flex show with us. And after watching film again, I truly believe it. If you have a different mindset, that's why I say come out with some fight. If you have a different mindset, if you have a different thought process when the ball's in the air, meaning it's my, because there's some DBs, like look at Trayvon Diggs with the Cowboys. When the ball's in the air, he says, this is my ball. I don't care that you're the receiver he's throwing. I'm going to get, and the receivers have to have that Tyler Johnson, Rashad Bateman, Eric Decker type of mentality. When the ball's in the air, I'm going to attack it. I'm not going to fall back and pray it makes it through 2 DBs and falls in my lap. They've got to attack the ball. We saw Brevin Spanford do it against Illinois when it went up high and got one. So every receiver has to take that mindset to save these quarterbacks a little bit.
I don't want to give away my key to the game, but
okay.
the microcosm for me of the Penn State game in a nutshell. Second half, Gophers take a shot down the field. Michael Brown-Stevens gets tripped up. He falls, gets intercepted, Penn State ball. I think it was the next possession or maybe 2 possessions later. 50-50 ball, Parker Washington for Penn State. Just goes up and grabs it over Terrell Smith. T-Time, as they call him, was in great position. You can't really fault the coverage. The receiver just went up and made a play. I mean, that changes games. That changes offenses. That changes vibe. That's what they need to get back to offensively. Like Ron said, regardless of who's playing quarterback, do the quarterbacks need to play better? Of course they do. But so do the receivers, so does the offensive line. The entire passing offense in general has to play better.
Through the first 4 weeks, especially when you look on offense, it appeared that Kirk Shiraka being back as the offensive coordinator looked like it was the missing piece, especially after what we saw in offense from this team the last year. The first 4 games, again, look fantastic. The last 3 weeks, have defenses started to figure him out a little bit? What adjustments does he need to make in order to kind of get things back to the way they were the first 4 weeks?
They're running the same plays. I don't think so. I really think, I look at it, Michigan State, 10 receivers caught passes. We came on the PJ Flex show and basically said, if they're going to spread the ball out, 10 people are going to make catches like they made those catches. Just book the trips to Indy right now.
Sure.
Like it's happening. That has not continued. So, to me, I don't think it's as much as they've been out schemed. I do think it's a matter of just guys making plays. Now, do they need to do things? Obviously, it's everything when you lose 3 in a row and your offense hasn't played very well. So I'm sure they're going to try some different stuff today. But I don't think it's a matter of them getting caught up to as much as just guys have to execute a little bit better.
Exactly. It goes back to execution, really.
It goes back to execution, but it starts with Ursery and Carroll when you think about up front. You know, the tackles have to be nasty. They cannot leave the quarterback guessing or thinking. When you think about John Michael Schmidt, one of the best centers in college football, what are you great at? You're great at going forward. We talked to John Randall with the Vikings. He said the same thing. Let's go forward. Like, I don't want to, Randall McDaniel. He's like, go forward. I don't want to go backwards and try to pass block. And so that's what we were talking about, the woes of training camp of the Vikings offensive line.
Right.
And that's what the Gophers are going through at certain points in this game is if you get away from the run too soon, which happens if the score dictates that, then you're not able to attack. And I think it starts up front with those big guys. Mo Ibrahim, the Purdue game, Mo Ibrahim didn't go. I'm pretty sure that was the one. So that changed the game a little bit. And then you look at, is he fully healthy? Yes, he's good, but then you come back and now you don't have Tanner Morgan. So it's like every time there's a piece that should be there, that piece comes out, and then you got to figure out how to put it together. It's next man up mentality, but this offense has to figure out a way, like JG said, to start fast. Like whatever your best 15 plays are, run them. I don't care if it's run, and then I'm going to run that RPO slant where Rashad Bateman would take it for 60. You've got to do that. Find a guy that can take it for 60, which it's got to be a faster guy. If it is Daniel Jackson or whoever you think is in there, if you got to put a freshman in there that's fast, get somebody in there that's going to take the top off because you've got to do that.
Sorry to cut you off. You mentioned the injury. Chris Bell, who'd have thought? I thought they could get around that, but
no,
it'd be nice to have him, right? It would be nice to have him in this situation.
We touched on this a little bit earlier in the week on the PJ Flex show. When you look at some of the numbers, the one that stands out to me really is how the Gophers have been on third down in their wins versus their losses. 78% conversion rate during the wins, down to 25% during the 3 losses. 78% third down conversion is a number that's not really sustainable.
Correct.
That won't hang for the entire season. But, I mean, you got to find a way to tilt the scales back toward the even, because that's a huge part of the game.
Well, and today, Rutgers, I think, is a 27% third down defense. So they're salty, and that's why this game is tricky as well. But I think a lot of that goes back to first and second down, and PJ has said it early on in the season. It felt like they were living in 3rd and 3. They were living in 3rd and 4. Just take Penn State, for example. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I feel like they were in 3rd and 8 or longer pretty much all night. That was, not running the ball well enough. The false start penalties in the first half that absolutely put them behind the chains. So, like, to go back to what we said at the top, not only do they have to start fast in terms of the scoreboard, but when they're moving and they're playing well, they're getting good first down efficiency, good second down efficiency. Then it's 3rd and 3, and then guess what? You can still hand it to Mo if you want to.
Yeah.
You can throw a 5-yard pass to Brevin Spanford. So to me, it's more about first and second down than even third, because that's what you're right. That's 78%, not sustainable. But the first 4 games, I feel like it was 3rd and short all day.
And that's really where no penalties. Mentally, you got to be in the game. Manageable third downs is really the key for the Gophers.
Yeah, and they're still at 58%, which is still number 1 in the NCAA. So when you think about that, like Gigi said, it's like starting out early, kind of like JG in college. You start out early, do great, so then later on you can kind of just sit back and just get your degree easily.
I was in third and long. I was in 3rd and long all my colleges.
But when you think about that, how can you start fast, first and second down? And when you think about first and second down, you got to run better plays. You got to run easier plays, especially if it's Ethan Kaliak-Manis. You got to run I watched Ohio State the other day. Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the best receivers in the NFL, and I got Pierre Garçon coming on my show next week, and and me and him and Reggie Wayne were talking about this. Marvin Harrison Jr. runs simple routes. He does run crazy stuff, but he runs hitches. He runs slants. They're doing old school stuff. The Gophers cannot get away from that. I know the RPO is your game. I know the check with me, but it's okay to just say, hey, run 5 yards, you take 3 steps, and you throw him the ball before the DB gets there. That's 7 yards, or you might Randy Moss that thing and break it. So they got to be able to do the basic stuff.
Ron, you've been a player before. When you're in a losing streak like this, who do you turn to in the locker room to really kind of provide a spark, or maybe just a couple of words of encouragement? Where do you look towards, as a player, where the leadership is going to come from, somebody to guide you through a losing streak like this?
Yeah, it goes down to the coach first, honestly. Like, your coaches are going to give you that mindset of that we're still in this. If your coaches aren't talking to you and you don't feel like they're bought in, which I know this staff is, I think that's where it starts. And then from there, the problem is it should be like a Tanner Morgan or a Mo Ibrahim. But when you look at the injuries and the things they're dealing with, who knows what that looks like during the week? If you're not the guy in the huddle, it's the guy in the huddle. So I know Ethan's young, but John Michael Schmidt, maybe somebody in that huddle has to do. If Tanner Morgan's not out there, if Mo's not out, whoever's out, they have to be able to do it. Honestly, normally it's the receiver that is going to give you that spark. The Rashad Batemans, the Tyler Johnsons, they've had that. The Chris Altman-Bells last year in Indiana. Those are the receivers and the guys, and so you need a spark. Mo's big run against Illinois gave everybody hope. It's got to be, it's okay to voice it, but you got to show me. Show me what you can do. And we saw Mo do it against Illinois. We haven't seen another receiver make a big play since Michigan State.
Right. It's going to be all those guys you just mentioned. I mean, it's Tanner Morgan, it's Mo Ibrahim, John Michael Schmitz. Just from my vantage point on the field, on the sidelines, he's always up and down the bench, not just in the offensive line, the running backs, the receivers, and on defense, it's Tyler Nubin and Mariano Sori-Marin, right? I mean, it's going to be those, probably even Tyler more so than Mariano, as great of a leader as Mariano is. So they've got guys that can do it, but it's also about who's going to make the play and provide the spark, because it isn't about the words, it's about the actions. And those plays, I go back to that Penn State play. That gave such a jolt to that building that was already on fire, because the guy just went up and made a great play.
Absolutely. And we are just getting started here on the Gopher pregame show. When we come back, we're going to take a closer look at today's opponent. The Scarlet Knights of Rutgers are in town. We'll take a closer look at what makes them so tough. All that and more coming up on the Gopher pregame show.
1955. You're watching the Gopher Pregame Show.
Welcome back to the Gopher Pregame Show, everybody. Live look outside Huntington Bank Stadium as we count you down to kickoff between the Gophers and the Scarlet Knights. A 1:30 kickoff today, not an 11, not a 2:30 like we're used to. 1:30, so be sure you get here on time as we get you set for the Gophers and the Scarlet Knights. Welcome back, everybody. It has been a struggle for the Gophers as of late, but when you look on the other side of the field, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, a team that also is 1-3 in conference. I feel like these two teams are kind of like that Spider-Man pointing me. We were just talking about memes in the break. We're just pointing at each other. It's like, you look the same. Is that me? Is that you? And both these teams kind of find themselves in similar boats. I know talent-wise there might be a little bit of distinction that Minnesota has over Rutgers, but how much similarity do we see between these two teams?
Well, I mean, not to go into the Spider-Verse, but you remember they actually ended up having like all four Spider-Men show up at the end.
I remember.
With like Toby whatever and then the young guy, Tom Holland. So not to say that, but that's the difference. I think the Gophers are the better Spider-Man of the two. I think they have a better team. I think they've had some struggles when you look at injury. You look at Tanner, you look at Chris Altman-Bell. And then Mo Ibram. So I just think that they are the better team. But you're right. Like, mirror images, 4-3, two teams that both are trying to become bowl eligible. I think for both, this is a game they need. Like, for Rutgers, for sure, when you look at who they have left, I think Maryland's probably their next easiest. For the Gophers, yeah, Iowa probably can be beatable. Wisconsin's beatable. But, yeah, when you think about the two, I think the Gophers are the better of the Spider-Men.
Well, they've gotten to this point in similar fashion where their defenses have kind of carried them. Now, the Gophers' defense took, I think, a step back last week in terms of the explosive plays. But Rutgers is going to live playing really good defense, really good special teams, and just try to get enough offensively. Last week, there's the play I was talking about. That's just a good play. It's not even bad defense.
And he's wearing number 3.
That's just what happens. You talk about Spider-Mans, and you're looking at yourself right there. So they've kind of arrived at these places in similar fashion. Now, Rutgers' offense, I don't think, has the potential that the Gopher offense does. They're very uncertain at quarterback. Their offensive line has given up a bunch of pressures. Hopefully, it's a bounce-back game for the Gophers' defensive line. And that's where I would give the Gophers the edge, is that when everything's rolling and everything's clicking, Gophers have more high-end potential offensively, and I think the defenses are pretty similar.
Minnesota scored 75 points in conference play. Rutgers, meanwhile, just 57. Like Justin alluded to it a moment ago, the quarterback play for Rutgers has been a little bit up and down. They started the season with Evan Simon as their quarterback. Now they're moving on to Noah Vidral. I mean, both quarterbacks honestly might play in this game. We've seen multiple quarterbacks used in several games for Rutgers this season. So, guys, how difficult is it to game plan for a team that might use multiple quarterbacks at any time?
So this is the thing. If the quarterbacks are different or the scheme is different when those guys are in, I think Rutgers is still going to try to run the same offense. I think it's not as hard with a team like this. I think back in the day with like Purdue it was, because you had one runner, you had one passer, and so that's a little bit tougher. With this group, you know, like Tua and Teddy Bridgewater, you know, two different type of styles. Yeah. But when you think about this team, it's the same thing. They're going to try to do the things, you know, as far as up front, running the ball, you know, strong, fast, you know, aggressive, and then they're going to do that. When they see man-to-man, they're going to run play action, and they're going to take a shot. And it's been working down the stretch so far, the games they've won. When you look at the Indiana game, they were extremely explosive in that game. But from as far as a game plan standpoint, honestly, like PJ says, you just got to line up and beat the person in front of you. The DBs, you still got to cover the receivers. Linebackers, you still got to tackle the running back. I don't think the quarterback in this situation, per se, is as big of a deal as it would be if it was like a different team with two different style guys.
Yeah, I like the matchup today because as we're seeing right here, they want to take deep shots. They want to go down the field. I think the Gophers secondary, to me, still remains the strength of this team, whether it is Terrell Smith, whether it is Justin Wally, whether it is Jordan Howden or Tyler Newman. And they've got guys that can come in as well after that. So I feel decent about that matchup. Now, Joe Rossi said this week that this last week against Indiana is probably the best that the Rutgers offense has played. They scored 27 straight points after being down 14-0. So all season they've been kind of searching. Maybe they found some things last week, and that's what Rossi talked about.
And one of those things that they found perhaps could be the freshman running back Samuel Brown V, who had his first career 100-yard game last week against Indiana, played a vital role in that comeback against the Hoosiers. And guys, I mean, obviously stopping the run is every coach's first priority. It makes things a lot simpler for you on defense. Is that going to be the first priority here for Minnesota?
I think it has to be. I mean, you go back to the Purdue game, they struggled early stopping the run. Obviously against Illinois, Chase Brown had 1 million carries for 1 million yards. Now he's a different caliber back than what they'll deal with today, and I think the offensive line is a different caliber line. I'm talking about Illinois than we'll deal with today. against Rutgers, but it has to be because it's just like the Gophers. I mean, when they're able to run the ball, actually they're kind of reversed. When they're able to throw the ball, that's when their running game. When they've had trouble running historically, they've hit like one pass of 15 yards. I swear, almost every time after they do that, it's a 15-yard run play because now you've got the defense guessing. And so, but to your point, Pierre, absolutely, they have to be able to rein in the run. That's what they did a little bit better early last week against Penn State. They didn't run the ball very well early. Penn State hit a couple of passes, and then guess what? All of a sudden, the run game was open.
Yeah, when you look at the rush defense for the Gophers, and I know Rutgers is looking at that, where are the holes at? The holes are in the play action, and so I think you have to focus on trying to force them in longer situations so you can't figure it out. I mean, you look at this run here. Like that hasn't happened a ton to the Gophers, but like JG said, it's like all of a sudden it's 3rd and 8, and you don't think it's going to happen, and then they break a big run or allow a big run. And so with this offense, their biggest thing is that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to figure out holes in this defense. How can we make guys like TJ said, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. I said that last week. Don't get confused with the play action. Don't get sucked up too soon. Play your keys. Know your guys. Let your other guys help. I mean, I watched a couple film plays where you can see if your head's across the defender, you make that tackle. If you get nosy and look back the other way, there's a crease. And that's how games are lost, when guys are not trusting the other guy to help them out. But, yeah, you got to stop the run first. That's going to be the key to this.
Samuel Brown V, looking like he's already off to a very promising career in his days as a Scarlet Knight. However, on the flip side, the Gophers have a guy by the name of Mo Ibrahim that I think we're all accustomed to seeing run the football. We're going to talk a lot more about him on the other side of the break. He has been an inspiration to his teammates coming back from injury. We will discuss that a little bit further and continue to get you ready for kickoff here between the Gophers and the Scarlet Knights. That's coming up next.
We didn't worry about this.
Welcome back to the Gopher Pregame Show.
Line up.
Welcome back into the Gopher pregame show, everybody. Live picture outside of Huntington Bank Stadium out here at the University of Minnesota. It's Saturday, not Sunday. I was getting ready for the Vikings game already. Taking on the Cardinals. But that's a different show. That will be for tomorrow. Right now, we're talking Gopher football as we get you ready for the Gophers and the Scarlet Knights. We've talked a little bit about what the Gophers haven't done over the last few weeks. One thing they have done, and have done consistently well all season long, is run the football, and a lot of reason for that is number 24, Mo Ibrahim, who has just been a sensation once again for this program. Guys, if you go back to the Outback Bowl, in the 15 games he has played since then, he has rushed for at least 100 yards or more. The last time a running back did that in FBS was Ezekiel Elliott, who also had 15 straight games of 100 yards or more. What kind of an inspiration has he been, especially when you come off a devastating injury the way he did last year, to bounce back and just continue to produce at the level that he has this year?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the injury last year, a lot of people thought, like, man, it's like Kobe Bryant, it's tough to come back. But he has that Mamba mentality, clearly, because he came back quick. And then now dealing with another, lower leg injury and going back out there, heavily taped, playing hard, still getting big runs, just shows his willingness to be about, the team and understand, like, hey, I'm going to get it done. And PJ said that the training staff's not going to let him do anything that's going to hurt his NFL career, and so he has to be smart about that. But I mean, his tenacity, his ability to run, and then when he scores, I love this, like the fact that he celebrates with the entire team.
Yep.
It's never a, like, go stand on top of the banister somewhere or Antonio Brown it or something. Like, he's a team first guy, and I think that's it speaks to the roll the boat culture that he brings to the organization.
Not only has he come back from a major injury, I mean, he's dealing with stuff every single week.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just tell by how he gets off the ground, how he comes back to the sideline, what he does after the games. And I feel like he's made it look so easy in his time here. We almost take it for granted.
Yeah,
and it was, maybe
definitely.
2020 during COVID when he was Big Ten running back of the year. I just sat there and I'm like, he's making this look so easy. Just this little zone read, the patience, how he can manipulate with his eyes, that, plants his foot, makes the cut. Really unbelievable. I mean, you think about it, he's not a very big guy. He's not a very fast guy. He's not anybody that you're going to watch at a combine and go, oh, we need to have this dude. But he just produces week in and week out. So one of the best careers we'll ever see here, and that's saying something at this school at the running back position.
Yeah, I mean, you'd say maybe some of the scouts look at him at the combine and say, I don't know about this guy. Consistency, production.
Every week.
Every single, 15 straight games with 100 yards. I don't care if you're Ezekiel Elliott. I don't care if you're Mo Ibrahim. That's not nothing. That is definitely something.
Yeah, when you think about Kenneth Walker the third, I think,
yes.
You see what he did, he's done, out of Michigan State. Last year, people said him and Mo were the top two running backs in the Big Ten at one point. And so you look at his production early on. Now it looks like he's going to be a pretty good running back in the NFL. He has one of the hardest Instagram pictures I've ever seen. I mean, if you just want to go look at Kenneth Walker the third. I can't even explain it. Just go look at it. The picture is tough. But when you think about him and then you look at Mo, it's similar. The big difference is top end speed.
Right.
Can Mo work in the offseason to get faster? He will find a speed coach, because everybody does it, to get ready to run a 40. At the end of the day, if I'm a scout, I'm watching the film. I don't care if it says 4.5. I don't care what his height says when they measure him. I don't care what the weight says when he gets on the scale. When you turn on that tape, like JG said, he's a guy that makes the zone read look extremely easy. So if I'm a zone read team, if I'm the Minnesota Vikings and I'm like, what do I do after Dalvin Cook and we're going to run a zone? Guys,
it's been a pleasure to watch him. I mean, that's all I can say. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch him.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. We are halfway through the Gopher pregame show. When we come back, everybody, we're going to be sitting down with the punter. Yes, the punter. Mark Crawford, everybody. Hey,
Ron's not doing that.
Don't change the channel. I promise you, this guy's an entertaining human being. You're going to find out on the other side of the break.
1955. You're watching the Gopher Pregame Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Gopher Pregame Show. Very special guest now. You know, we've talked offense, we've talked defense, but you know what? It's time now to talk special teams, and then who better to do it with the star punter for the Minnesota Gophers, Mr. Mark Crawford. Mark, we appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me. It's an honor.
Now, as people might not know, but you can hear from his accent a little bit, Mark is from Australia, and I'm sure a lot of people watching at home are wondering, Mark, in Australia, regular football here is not as prevalent. How did you get into it? How did you become a punter down in Australia?
It's a great question. Sometimes I have to pinch myself every day and ask the same question, but no, basically I played a different sport completely. I played cricket before coming over to Minnesota, and that sort of took a different path and ended up moving to Melbourne. Just wanted to start studying. At this point I was 24, 25, I suppose, and one of my mates who was at Kentucky, and he just said, hey, like, how's Melbourne doing, whatever. I said, oh, it's pretty good, I'm about to start studying. He goes, oh, you should try this program out at Pro Kick Australia. They got me here, and it would be pretty cool for you. And I said, oh, like, what harm does another 6 months make? I'll give myself 6 months. Doesn't work out. Otherwise, I'll start studying, whatever. And one thing led to another. I went down. They said, I think we can get you to school. And then a couple of weeks later, Coach Rob Wenger knocking on the door,
and here you are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
January 2020, I arrived, and I've only been home once since then. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably miss your family.
Yeah, it's just mum and dad.
Yeah, okay.
It's just mum and dad. So, yeah, obviously they played a pretty big part. They've supported me pretty much my whole life. So they haven't made it out yet, but they're looking forward to it probably next season for sure.
Okay.
For a magnitude of games, I imagine. Yeah.
When you told them you were going to be punting in college football in America, their reaction was what?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, they weren't too hesitant about it, but I guess I was a little bit older as well. It's not like I was a 18-year-old kid that's just moving out for the first time. I'd moved out for a couple of years, and took the plunge. They said, take your opportunities, go for it, and make the most out of it. Get your education first, and football and whatever, and yeah, here we are.
There is an art form to punting. I don't care what anybody says. It is an art form. How have you gotten to structure your game and really kind of hone in your craft here playing for the U?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Wenger and Coach Fleck do a really good job in making sure that I feel comfortable. And that goes a long way. I mean, obviously they put the pressure on and make sure that you're performing under pressure, but I suppose it's pretty similar to Australian rules football. I mean, that probably doesn't get any airtime over here.
Yeah,
from what I've seen. It's a very different game.
Sure.
But basically that's how we pass the ball, is through punting it back home.
Okay.
So the transition was unbelievably similar.
Okay.
Obviously there's different nuances here with getting it off a bit faster and catching it and then releasing it straight away, but it's great fun, and I get to go out and just have a kick around, it feels like, so it's wicked.
For those who don't understand Australian rules football, and I would be one of them, but I do know one thing: you have to bounce the ball before you advance. Is that correct? You can take a few steps, but you have to bounce a football
roughly
on the
every
ground.
15, 20 yards. You have to take whether it's at full speed or whether you're jogging, depending on your environment around you, you have to bounce the ball on the ground or just touch it along the ground. And you might see me pre-game just having a running up and down and running around. So.
And this is what I want to talk to you about, because, I mean, listen, it's not like a basketball or even a soccer ball that is just round, easy bounce. We're talking about a football here. How do you easily just bounce a football like it's a basketball? I don't get it.
I guess we just started doing it when we were about 4 years old.
Yeah.
So when there's a will, there's a way, and I think everyone back home sort of makes it. Everyone's dream is to run down the wing of a game of football and be bouncing the ball to yourself and have all the land in front of you. So I guess it's just part and parcel of the game, and go from there.
So this is what we need to do when the college football season is over. You're going to have to teach me cricket, Australian rules football, and rugby. Like rugby, I kind of get to an extent, but